We're gonna need one more member to join.
They've got less than 30 seconds to get here.
Okay.
Hi, Rocky.
Technically, we have Carlton Johnson on the line, who is Michelle's alternate. So I guess we do have 5 and could start the meeting.
Well, great. Look at that, 10 o'clock on the dot. Welcome, everybody, to the September 7th Mountain Line TAC meeting. Hope everybody's doing well and had a good Labor Day weekend. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the TAC. Coconino County, Tiffany Kerr.
I am here.
Thank you. Coconino County Citizen Representative Carol Covington.
I am also present.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff Citizen Representative Carlton Johnson.
Here, but I do have to leave at 11 if that messes up the quorum.
Should be okay. Michelle James is expected, just not online yet. Thank you. Metro Plan Dave Wessel and Kate Morley are excused. NAU Aaron Stump.
Here.
Thank you. And we also have Rafi Rivera, your alternate on the line.
Present.
Thank you. NAU ASNAU President Maria Matchler.
Present.
Thank you. CCC Kurt Stull.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. And Economic Development Representative Gail Jackson is excused. We do also have Chris Beecher, our Mountain Line attorney, on the line.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Stump.
Thanks, Rhonda. We are going to move right into our safety minute, and pitch hitting for Sam is Cody Weaver.
Good morning. This is September Safety Minute number 1. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Transit Advisory Committee. Today's Safety Minute is about the importance of reporting safety issues. Every year, employers across the country pay millions of dollars in unnecessary employee injury claims. It is important for all health and safety issues to be reported to the proper personnel. Beyond the obvious reasons for preventing injury, here are a few reasons why it is important to report all health and safety concerns. It promotes a strong work safety culture. When employees feel comfortable enough to regularly report safety hazards, they tend to perform and produce better work because they don't worry as much about their well-being. Prevents litigation and lawsuits. Having a work culture where employees can openly report and discuss safety issues will protect both the people and the organization from possible litigation and lawsuits. Such a culture will help show the company is doing its due diligence to protect its employees by addressing and mitigating any safety issues as they are reported. Preventing patterns. The last problem you want to have in the workplace is a recurring pattern of accidents occurring until an employee gets hurt or worse. When employees report safety hazards, it empowers managers and employers to deal with the issues quickly by directly addressing the root issues that are causing these hazards. It can also identify existing patterns so you can analyze trends and develop strategies to stop these trends and patterns. Increase worker wellness. On top of all these reasons, a strong safety culture where employees report safety hazards will also result in more engaged, happier employees. Working within such a culture, employers are happier knowing everyone has each other's back, as well as a peace of mind that safety is priority. Thank you and welcome to the September Transit Advisory Committee meeting.
That was great information. Thank you, Cody. We're going to move on to some milestone anniversaries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Mountain Line as a team have been recognizing milestone anniversaries for the last several years with our board of directors. And I wanted to start sharing those with you as well. So Mountain Line celebrates milestones as a 1-year anniversary and then every 5-year increment over the employee's life at Mountain Line. And so today, this month in September, we are celebrating 1 15-year anniversary and 5 1-year anniversaries. So we'll start with Grace Charlie, who is on the screen there. We are celebrating her 15th anniversary. I'm going to read to you a comment from Grace's peers and her supervisor. Grace is one of Paratransit's kindest operators. She's always willing to go above and beyond to assist our clients when there are scheduling issues. She does her best to make them feel safe and secure while in transit. Most importantly, she works hard to get our customers where they need to go, always willing to go the extra mile to keep Mountain Line compliant. I wanted to note that Grace actually was part of the original transit program that was operated by Coconino County. She started in the late 80s for Mountain Line. She left her employment in around 2004, 2005 for several years and returned. So this milestone of 15 years does not include that prior almost 20 years of service that she offered to Mountain Line. So we're very grateful that Grace continues to operate as a paratransit operator within our organization. She's well known in our community for her kindness. Next slide. Got it. So we do have, moving on, we do have 5 1-year anniversaries to share with you. And again, these are comments from their supervisors. Don Palmer started with our agency 1 year ago, and his supervisor says, don't let his quiet demeanor fool you. Don is a hardworking, consistent performer, maintaining great attendance. Don is regularly willing to come in on his day off to assist with scheduling and vacant shifts, but most importantly, our passengers love him. He is a true asset to Mountain Line. Elvira Cisco also celebrating her 1st anniversary. Elvira has a smile on her face and is very welcoming. She is hardworking and willing to assist where needed. Fellow staff say she has an upbeat and infectious personality, and I couldn't agree more. Kind of jumping down to the bottom, Chris Haviland on the bottom left. Also 1 year. Wow, if I could clone operators, I would clone Chris. A solid, focused operator. He's consistent, he's dependable, he's safe, and he operates our vehicles and does his job with a high level of integrity. He is a shining example of Mountain Line's core values. Sticking with our operators on the bottom right, Aaron Linehan also celebrating his 1st anniversary. Aaron is a classic example of Mountain Line's efforts to develop a staff member. Aaron has had a rough beginning with us as he was challenged with learning routes, frequently making wrong turns and going down the wrong street because he was new to the area. However, he maintained his professionalism and showed that he had a desire to succeed. Aaron has shown he has what it takes to become one of Mountain Line's best. And then the last on the screen is Stephen Yazzie on the upper right. Stephen works in our facilities department. And Stephen's supervisor shared, Stephen has played a crucial role in ensuring the upkeep and cleanliness of our bus stops citywide. Since the end of January, he has admirably taken on the responsibilities of 2 staff members and has approached this role with a strong sense of pride and ownership. Stephen's contributions make him a valuable asset to Mountain Line. So I'm very excited to celebrate these milestones with you, and all of these individuals will receive a small gift from Mountain Line this month, as well as recognition by their peers and our passengers.
That's awesome. Thanks, Heather. And ditto on the wish to clone the great staff members, right? Especially if you can keep them more than a decade. That's amazing. So, okay, next item on the agenda is call to the public. I do not believe we have anything written. Rhonda, is there any call to the public items for today?
No, and no one present here at the meeting either.
Perfect. Thank you. The next item is approval of the TAC minutes. We did get them a little bit late, which is fine. I want to give folks an opportunity to first discuss, are people comfortable making a motion to approve, or would we table it till the next month, Rhonda?
We would table it to November because
Oh,
October
November,
is.
right, it's the October, yeah. So first, can I get just from the voting members, if you want to table it, please say aye. Okay, hearing none, can I get any comments or questions on the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So this is Carol. I will move to approve.
Thank you, Carol. Can I get a second?
I second.
Oh, lots of seconds.
Yeah.
Is that Greg? Greg, were you one of them?
Yes, I
Okay,
was.
let's say
Thank you.
Greg is the second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving on to our business. Oh, hi. Did I mess up something?
Sorry. I just wanted to clarify or let everyone know that City of Flagstaff member Greg Clifton did join us, and City of Flagstaff citizen representative Michelle James. So
Perfect.
we have everyone here that was expected. Thank you.
More than quorum. Thanks, Rhonda. Okay, so moving on to our discussion action items. The first item on our list, Busy is going to share the biannual performance report.
Great. Thank you, Chair, members of the Transit Advisory Committee. Next slide, please, Rhonda. I'm here to talk about what's been happening over the last year, give you confirmed data. When I presented to you last in May and in June, so June, we adopted the strategic plan, KPIs, and in May, I provided kind of that 6 month, the first half of FY23's data. So I'm here to confirm the rest of FY23's data and give you some projections for FY24 as well. So this slide should look more familiar. These are our financial and service performance benchmarks that have been in place for many, many years. I think 2015 was when it was first approved. And so we'll be on this slide for a little bit. I'm not going to go through every data point. I'm just going to highlight some items. So as a reminder, we did have the operator shortage, which we're still trying to come out of, and we did have reduced service for the first half of FY23. And that does result in fewer boardings in our bus. So the first item, looking at the yellow fixed route bus lines. So we did have fewer boardings than projected, but we're still 21% over FY22 for ridership, and we are on track to return to pre-COVID levels by FY25. And at the end of FY23, Mountain Line ridership was at 62% of pre-COVID levels. Moving on to paratransit, the light blue. So I'll go through all of these modes, and then if you have any questions on the data, I'd be happy to circle back. So going to the demand response, paratransit and microtransit, the light blue box. So paratransit, they do have the option, paratransit clients have the option to a subsidized trip by the taxi program instead of Mountain Line paratransit vans. That's ideal for us. Taxi trips are increasingly popular and assist in reducing paratransit trips and lowering operational costs for Mountain Line, which is why it's ideal for us. It's less of a cost. Paratransit experienced only a 1% growth over FY22, and we're still at 57% of pre-COVID ridership, which again, like, we're saving on costs. That's great. We're still there providing trips for people who need it. That's great. And you can see between the costs, so now that we have demand response, paratransit and microtransit, definitely the costs over the years has definitely reduced paratransit costs by having both demand response options. So the microtransit is commingled with our paratransit trips. So it's the same van, same operator, and they're just taking on that rider as they're going along with other paratransit riders on their destination trip. And so you can see that, yeah, the cost per trip for microtransit, that $28 is really taking out of the paratransit total cost. So you can see as we, cost per trip is definitely, I guess, increased, but the cost per hour, I guess, has gone down for paratransit over the years because of the microtransit. So it's kind of splitting. And microtransit, so we're continuing the microtransit service to the Huntington Industrial Corridor, and that ridership continues to fluctuate month over month. And definitely you can see here, I guess we just had the 1 year of data to share, but yeah, month over month continues to fluctuate, and it's really just the social services that people are in need of in that Huntington industrial corridor, and new people learning about the service. Every month we have new riders and continued riders, so it's really interesting to see that change. But it's a great service, and really our projection for FY24, that 1,300 trips, just kind of I'm curious to see how it will continue to evolve. So just kind of a projection of, yeah, probably similar to this last year, we're going to see in this next year for ridership. Moving on to taxi program, that's the burnt orange box. We have the city and the county split out. And so again, this taxi program is only for our paratransit eligible clients. And it's at a lower cost than that of paratransit, and city trips are up 19% over FY22, while county trips are down 29%. And I want to make a note on the FY24 projection for that cost per trip. It jumps up to $44 from the 28. And really just trying to enable, if we have a larger budget, and that is what is shared here. So the actual county taxi budget is much larger than what we project for actual expenditures, but we wanted to put it in there. So it kind of inflates the cost per trip. But that was kind of the background on that data there. And then the last item is the van pool. And you can see van pool, it was not impacted by COVID whatsoever. It continued to grow. Van pool ridership is 54% higher than pre-COVID levels. And a lot of that is due to its growth. So we had just last year, in FY23, we went from 6 vans to 10 vans. We had some new groups joining. This is mainly a mix of healthcare and forest service staff that are utilizing the van pool. So it's great. We're really excited to see this program increase and expect it to continue doing so. So any questions on the financial and service performance benchmarks before I move on to the key performance indicators?
Any questions for Busy?
This is Carol. I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
And it could be that the board is familiar with the nuances, the differences between paratransit and microtransit. But as you were describing that piece, it occurred to me that I don't know what the difference is between those two and how they work.
Excellent point. Thank you for that, Member Covington. Yeah, let me just step back to that. Thank you for that question. So demand response. So demand response overall is very much that when you want a trip, you get that trip. So we're not going to operate a bus like fixed route. We're not going to operate on a route day after day, hour after hour. Trips are only provided when they're requested. So that's our demand response. And then paratransit is for, it's a eligibility-based program that supports people with mental and physical disabilities who cannot utilize the fixed route system. So it's very specific to paratransit, whereas microtransit is a general population. Anybody can use it. Anybody can request those rides. We only provide service within a specific zone, the microtransit Huntington Industrial Corridor Zone, and then a few fixed route connections like the Mall Connection Center and et cetera, a few others. So thank you for that question. I'll be sure to start with that for the board meeting.
Thank you. That helps.
Yes, thank you. Great. Not hearing any other questions. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So now I'm jumping into the key performance indicators. So this is what was introduced in earlier this year, so spring, and was adopted by the board in June. Hopefully you saw the progress report for the June meeting in your packet. Sorry, where are we? In August. So it would have been a progress report in August, just updating you on the June adoption. So here we have our scorecard. These on the left, we have the strategic plan goal, key performance indicators, and then we have our FY23 goal, actual, and then our FY24 goals. So the FY23, you see a lot of not, NAs, not applicable, and really, we started this project last year. So FY23, we're identifying all the KPIs, key performance indicators, and we didn't have goals set. So besides the on-time performance item there. And then this is our scorecard as a reminder. And now I'm going to go into each of these goals. We have more KPIs than are listed here, but we really want that scorecard approach, a simplified approach. So I'm going to pause here if there's any questions on the scorecard, and then I'm going to dive deeper into each of these stats.
Any questions? Oh, keep going.
Great. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So overall, staff has been working to set up tracking systems, transfer data as available, and implement new procedures for logging data. That's been a big lift over the summer. So we're still not completely, we don't have all of the data readily available for this report. I'm really excited in another 6 months for the next biannual performance report. We should have everything in place. So just a note before we jump fully in. And that comment is definitely relevant to the very bottom line, the emissions from mountain line vehicles in tons. So we have this great with our electric buses. We have some energy management systems online, but Jeremiah McVicker and I realized that the parameters are not right. The energy emissions mix from APS is not set correctly. So really we weren't able to get the emissions yet, but we're still working to set those up. So that's why the asterisk is there on the 2,946 tons of greenhouse gases. We think it's going to be less. We know it's going to be less, but how much we didn't want to overpromise. So really we're saying that we didn't have any emission savings last year, even though we know we did. And then for the FY24 goal, again, we're very conservative. 1 ton of greenhouse gas we expect to save, or rather reduce with our electric buses. We expect it to be more. We don't want to overpromise. So in, another 6 months, we'll have much better data, and we're really excited to celebrate our emissions reduction. Another item I want to bring to your attention here is the service excellent goal. The bottom light orange bar there, it's called, so the overall customer satisfaction with survey. We talked in May about a possible net promoter score. And really, without going deep into that net promoter score item, it's really, we did a bunch of research on it. It's not conclusive for the value that it would bring to Mountain Line. It's we could compare ourselves to other transit agencies, other industries, even with that net promoter score, but it definitely takes a bit more work. And so really we're looking for something else in that service excellence goal that does reflect on customer satisfaction. And we were hoping maybe the net promoter score would do that, but we're currently evaluating using the Mountain Line customer satisfaction survey result of the overall satisfaction with with service. And so in our last survey, we had 89% satisfaction of the very and somewhat responses of very and somewhat satisfied responses. And we had that similar result the last time we did that survey. So would love to hear if this maybe is a good substitute. Staff are continuing to evaluate what goes in this slot, but we think something that reflects back on customer satisfaction would be nice to have. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear. And otherwise, moving on to the next slide. So I'm not going to go into every single detail. They should be somewhat familiar. Thanks, Rhonda. So our next 2 goals, investing in Mountain Line workforce, enhance safety culture. You can see here, so investing in Mountain Line workforce, we have some NAs. We do have some stats, like we had 10 promotions that were entered into the inflection system, so one of our software systems, and 3 retirements. So definitely something to celebrate, but continuing, again, to build up these systems for tracking. So we have a program inflection and really learning to be power users of that inflection system and getting all of this set up in the system. So again, we don't have data on these items just yet, but kind of have a placeholder. We have that employee engagement score. So again, 89% for the employee engagement score. And that came from Mountain Line's employee survey. And we are hoping to do that again this year. I think before the end of the calendar year is the goal, but Cody and Sam are definitely working on that employee survey item. For this enhanced safety culture, I wanted to identify a couple items in here. So it's interesting, as you probably saw in Sam's August safety report, the collisions, the accidents, total vehicle accidents of last year. So 40% of that 78 of total accidents occurred during January to March from the intensity of the snowstorms. So that didn't help our stat. And then you can see preventable accidents did go down. So that's great. So the snowstorm, it wasn't, so for some of those items, maybe we weren't at fault. The operator was not at fault. So our preventable accidents did go down, which is great. Our FY24 goal is 40%. So we did achieve that a few years back, and that's what we knew that was realistic and achievable. So that's the score we chose for FY24. Of course, our goal is 0. We want, zero preventable accidents to be happening on our roads, but let's get something that's achievable.
If I may, Busy,
Please.
real quick, I would like to clarify, because I'm sure for some of you, when Busy says accident or Sam says accident, you're imagining vehicle to vehicle collisions. So I think it's worth mentioning that Mountain Line considers an accident anytime a vehicle makes contact with anything. So the snow, for example, number of those where the vehicle's making contact with berms, with snow berms that created damage to the vehicle. So I wanted to clarify and make sure everyone's aware that we define accidents as not just car to car or car to person. It is about car to an immovable object. So just wanted to clarify that so that you're not imagining that we had 78 vehicle to vehicle collisions. It's that broader term of accidents that we use here at Mountain Line.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Busy.
Yes. And the other item I want to point out is the very last line, the percentage of staff recognized with the safety award. We do currently have an NA, but Sam and Cody have started the 100 Club. So this is the first of our safety awards implemented. The 100 Club is, so it's an evaluation performed randomly several times a year. It focuses on safe driving and customer service. So onboard video is constantly taken, right? And so the reviewers take that onboard video, review it for safe driving, customer service. And if the operator got 100% on that review, they are in the 100 Club. So we do have 15 operators that got 100% rating on their behind the wheel evaluation since July, and we're continuing that program. So I have nothing, that's what I can report right now. And we are also exploring more safety award ideas, such as an annual accident-free award. And both of these include a monetary bonus on their paycheck in the after these evaluations are done. So definitely a very positive incentive there. I'm excited about this program. And then just a quick note, I forgot to say it on the last slide, but the bold items on these slides are the scorecard stats. So that's why some of these, like the employee engagement score, that is our scorecard stat, 89%. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And this is my last slide. These are our last 2 strategic plan goals: community engagement and financial health. So you can see on the community engagement, people who have never ridden the bus report Mountain Line is seen as a valuable service for our community. That's Mountain Line's Never Rider survey. It was last conducted in FY19. We had that incredible score of 93.1%. That is our goal for next time. Obviously, that's achievable. You can see here, though, that we're not planning to do it until FY26. So talking with Jackie about this, Jackie Lenners, Marketing Communications Director, that she said, we're doing so much survey work right now with the transit tax that it's just a little confusing. So kind of pushing out that Never Rider survey till FY26. However, in the meantime, you are well aware that we're polling the community on various transit tax questions. And part of that polling really does come down to the community value. So it's not like Mountain Line's not getting feedback about community value, especially in anticipation of that transit tax question. But it's just not apples to apples for this specific, the way the question was worded and getting that stat. So I didn't want to throw just anything up there that isn't exactly apples to apples, but just did want to reassure TAC members that we're definitely gauging community support in the meantime. And that's really all I had to point out on these KPIs. I'd love to take any questions, any feedback that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Busy. My only comment is, I think we're supposed to get a similar winter. I think we should just note that, right? So in the tracking of this, I think that, I mean, that is just something that even the safest drivers are, and you guys kept running, you know, I mean, I think, I don't know how many days or times that things got reduced but I think that has to be included so that for tracking purposes, it's noted in there about the significant snowstorm, because that really, while we might still consider it preventable, makes it really darn hard to prevent. Other comments or questions for Busy? And I'm watching the participant board in case somebody raises their hand, but just.
I had a question, Busy. I'm sorry. If you need, did you need to go, Michelle?
Oh, I can after you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to when an accident occurs. What's the SOP for that? What does that procedure look like for the drivers and then for you guys on the back end?
Robbie, that's a good question that I can't answer. I apologize.
Good news is that Jim Wagner, our operations director, is here, and he could probably give a brief synopsis of what that looks like, Rafi.
Thank you.
Excellent, great. Thank you for the question. So I don't have all the information in front of me, but the basis is once an accident happens, it's called in generally by the driver to the dispatcher. From the dispatcher, we actually send out a field or a supervisor that's in the field. If there's one available on that side of the town, whatever, we actually notify police. We find out if there's any injuries involved. We check the status of our passengers, that sort of thing. And this is very vague, by the way. And then from there, we actually do it's the responder in charge could be somebody like myself, if that's it's on the side of town, or it's generally is the supervisor responds, and they start filling out all the associated paperwork with that. And then fleet's also involved. We look to see if the bus has been disabled, that we get another bus on route as quickly as possible with another operator. If passengers are able to be transferred, we transfer passengers. We try to keep their exposure down to a minimum, try to get them on time to where they need to go. And from there, more paperwork, of course, as you can guess, is being done. And it eventually ends up into the hands of Sam, and it goes to the accident review committee, and we review the processes, and we identify if we're at fault. We take a look at reevaluating the drivers. We assess the driver to see if he needs more training, that sort of thing, and look to see what we could do better. Often it is somebody's hitting our big blue buses. Did I get close to what you were after? Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I had a comment and a question about the financial health objective 6.2. The comment is, I think this is really important data, and you guys are probably already thinking about this, but in terms of advocating for and explaining the transit tax, because you guys are getting so much federal money for the local money spent. It's just really, really impressive. And then, you know, the 80% is the actual. So just make sure I understand that. That means that for every dollar, the federal funding is probably less than the 4 times. So it's 3 point something. Is that what you mean by the 80% of achieving the 6.2 objective?
So yeah, of $5, $4 of that is federal funding for our capital projects. So that's what it's supposed to reflect. So hopefully that Yeah. Does that read right to you?
Yeah, I think so. I just was trying to figure out what the 80% means. So it probably means that you're almost achieving that, right? So it's pretty darn close. So anyway,
Mhm.
I think that's a good thing for the public to know. That's really, really impressive.
I had
Thank you.
I think a similar confusion on how that's, yeah, I think the multiplier itself would be clearer. If that's
Okay.
what Michelle was getting at too. And a separate question, I'm curious, what are the trends that make you think total ridership will return to pre-COVID levels in 2 more years? I would think it's either back by now or it's not, or there's trends I'm not understanding.
Yeah. So definitely, so looking, so I do the projections, so I'm just rewinding in that process. So I look at increases month over month, and then, like when school comes back, what is that increase? And so if we have, if we're up 21 or 2%, I forget, we're up 21%. So then like couple that with the school increases, in August. And so try to make those projections like that. And then, so looking at the pre-COVID level ridership, 2.5 million was pre-COVID. And just next year alone, we're looking, so FY24, we're looking at a 34% increase based on those projections. And then by the time, so if the increases continue as they have, like based on past increases, then we should be over 2.5 million by FY25. Hopefully, did that answer your question, Carlton? I hope.
You're following a trend line, but I'm not
Yes.
sure I understand the science behind the trend line.
Busy.
But
I
Yeah,
think the other
yeah.
comment you made earlier was that you guys have had driver shortages. When we are short a driver, maybe
Yeah.
normally when you're normally fully staffed, you can get through a loop 14 times, right? With a 12-minute arrival, but with your shortage, maybe you're only getting through it 11 times or 10 times, and that affects your numbers. So the more times they can complete a loop on a particular route, you're just going to have more people. And so the better we can get at filling our bus driver positions, the more we can have that increased route coverage, and that will raise those numbers as well. So that's probably, I think you made that point earlier, the driver shortages have been a big impact.
Absolutely. Great point, Erin. Yeah, definitely. Now that we don't have a half of year that we're at reduced service, hopefully for FY24, we'll be at full service all year long. That will help a bunch, just like Erin explained. So hopefully that gives you some more background, Carlton.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions for Busy? Okay, Busy, did you have more slides on this one?
No, I believe that's my last slide.
All right, then we will move on to the FY23 annual report with Josh Stone.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to all members of the Transit Advisory Committee. All right, so this is our fiscal year 2023 annual report. For anyone new, this report is kind of dry and boring, mostly straight technical data, but it is in state statutory requirements for operating a public transit authority. We're required to submit this report to the state within 120 days of the end of the fiscal year. So we're going to review some of the performance items and financial outcomes for the year. Some of these items are similar to or maybe exactly what Busy shared. I'm sure hers was a lot more dynamic, so bear with me and excuse any overlap. So if we move to the first slide, we have the next slide. Just a few highlights of note for the year. We, of course, have focused and continue to focus on recruitment and retention. There's an ongoing shortage of commercial drivers, license holders across many organizations, not just us. Our recruitment team continues outreach in as many venues as they're able to show success in hiring and continue chipping away at that. We do continue to meet competitive benchmarks for stick measures, that's small transit intensive cities. We are just one of 10 small communities nationwide to meet all 6 performance indicators. These metrics compare our system, which is a metro area of under 200,000, to larger systems, and by meeting these metrics, we can access extra federal funds for operations due to the high value that is being returned for those funds. So in the last appropriations funding cycle, I think we were able to bring in $3.2 million in additional federal funds by reaching all of these metrics. Many of you have attended either the groundbreaking of our Downtown Connection Center project or CDL training course at NAU, or both. And so this year, last year, received our first electric bus in the transition and replacement of our aging fleet to zero emissions vehicles. So next slide, please. So next we're going to sort of just quickly review performance for the various programs that we or modes of service that we operate. These reports are posted every month for public review. You can always see them at our website. And then this one in particular is just a wrap up of the year. So all of our charts currently reference fiscal years 2019 to 2023. 2019 was the last full year before COVID, so that gives a little bit of a benchmark of a last normal year, I guess. As in 2020, there was a reduced service and large dip in ridership due to COVID, and then ridership has been kind of on the uptick since. Federal Transit Administration is still using some of these 2019 metrics. I think this might be the final year for that. But so this might be the last time you see that on these reports. We have seen increased ridership across the fixed route bus network of about 21% for the fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. These performance measures, which Busy showed you before, have been adopted by the board to evaluate effectiveness and efficiency. Bus trips, as I said before, are increased by about 21% over the previous year. Average number of daily trips is 4,325. With the increase of passengers, the average cost per passenger is still decreasing after the COVID spike. The cost of service per hour has increased by about $13, primarily due to just increased cost of parts and supplies for the aging bus fleet and ever-growing insurance costs. Not reflected here due to staffing levels throughout the year. There were occasional periods of time of reduced service on certain routes. That also contributes to a slightly higher cost of per hour of service. All the overhead expenses remain the same, but they're obviously spread out over less hours. Next slide, please. So moving on to paratransit, our door-to-door service. Ridership continues to be like somewhat lower than COVID. It has stabilized though. There was a significant winter dip in ridership due to the harsh weather. Many clients stayed home or day programs might have been closed or on reduced hours. So there was just a lot less usage during that time period. The next slide is the city taxi program. The taxi program is available in the city of Flagstaff service boundary. A very small number of clients also take advantage of the service outside the service boundary into Coconino County. The county assists with funding that. We'll see that on a different slide, but so on this slide, the top metrics are actually combined city and county taxi trips. The bottom chart is just city of Flagstaff trips, which is an average of about 530 per month. Next slide is the performance measures for paratransit programs. Paratransit performed about 1.8 trips per hour. A lot of time involved with paratransit for, waiting for the clients to board and getting them off at their destination. This is a pretty similar number to the prior year. City taxi vendors, taxi providers provided 6,383 trips, which is an increase of about 1,000 trips. This is a nice savings to the paratransit program of about $400,000. These trips are cheaper to us as the vendors are sort of absorbing most of the operating cost that we otherwise have for running a dedicated paratransit van. So next up, we're going to review the Coconino County programs. The county provides the operating contribution for these programs. Here's the ridership for the van pool program. In the fiscal year 2023, we had about 9 vans in our busiest month of peak service. And about 75 users shared those 9 vans for trips, commuter trips to their workplaces. Total trips were up about 50% over the prior year. There's continued growth and interest in this program. Most recently, IHS through Winslow Indian Healthcare Center has expressed an interest in expanded program between Winslow and the newly opened Dilcon Medical Center. You'll hear about that in an upcoming agenda item, I think, next. So next slide is the performance measures for the Coconino County Taxi Program. As I said before, for the city taxi slide, the top chart is city and county taxi trips. So the difference this slide is the chart at the bottom, which is like the very limited number of users that use the further reaching county taxi program. We only see about 38 users per month for this service. There was a reduction in users of this program during COVID. It's sort of languished at lower levels since and has not rebuilt substantially. Next slide are the performance measures for the county programs. Van Pool had about 15 trips and they covered 135,000 miles around the county. So that's pretty robust usage. The county taxi program provided 454 trips, which is a drop of 30%. I guess, like a difference of 1 or 2 riders can make a huge difference in this program since it's so small. So next slide. We're gonna move into more financial numbers. So revenue for the fiscal year 2023, you can see the different revenue sources, City of Flagstaff, the partners, the City of Flagstaff, NAU, Coconino County, ADOT funds are marked as federal funds because the state generally does not provide transit funding. The state instead passes through federal dollars that are allocated to the state. And then federal funding is available on a reimbursement basis as we have expenses. So in many cases, we may have more funds allocated than are shown here, but these are just what was drawn this year to cover our expenses. Next slide. In the fiscal year 2023, expenses for all operations and capital uses were about $16.7 million. There's a breakdown by program. We did have about $4 million in planning expenses as construction activities kicked off and getting into larger dollars on those projects. Next slide. This is the expenses by type. Salaries and benefits are definitely our largest. The largest expense is about 7 million. As I said before, maintenance and operations has increased quite a bit the last few years with higher fuel costs and maintenance of the aging fleet and just overall higher insurance costs. The next slide is pretty boring. It is just local money only. All of this is covered by advertising revenue. We had over $100,000 in advertising revenue this year, but the expenses are small for just covering board meetings and some other membership expenses. And we don't charge any salaries or overhead to our general fund. So that's all that's there. Next slide are the costs for the City of Flagstaff. This is fixed art bus, paratransit, microtransit, and city taxi programs. As I said before, maintenance and operations is up over the last few years due to the fuel costs and insurance and parts. Next slide, planning expenses are tracked separately. We try to capitalize planning wages wherever we can so that the costs are included in the project budgets. And that means they are primarily grant funded and sort of a savings to City of Flagstaff tax dollars, since 80% of the wages can be charged the grant instead of the city. And then the last, or maybe this is the second to last slide, is the two smaller Coconino County programs, taxi and Vanpool. Most of this cost, there are some admin expenses, which is staff time and marketing and outreach for the program. And then most of the cost is to outside vendors. Enterprise provides the Vanpool vehicles, so there's a lease cost for those, and then taxi providers provide the taxi trips. So, and then I think that is all. So hopefully everybody's still awake, and if you have any questions, you can send them this way.
Thank you, Josh. Questions for Josh?
This is
Go ahead, Carol.
well, this is Carol. I was just looking at the staff report and the way alternatives are outlined for the recommended and not recommended. It seems to me, unless I'm mistaken, that not approving this is not really an option. Maybe making edits to ensure that it is completed and ready to submit before the, if I read it correctly, December 1st deadline is a better alternative to not approving it, which will leave. I just don't think that that's actually an option. So that's just my 2 cents.
That is true. It needs to be approved. We can certainly work on the wording. If we do not approve it this month, we would have to revise perhaps how it was written, but still submit it by the deadline.
Anything else for Josh? Okay, thanks, Josh. We are going to move on. Estella's off getting married. She couldn't have zoomed in. I'm just kidding. So Heather is going to take on the next topic, which is the Winslow Indian Healthcare Center request for service.
Thank you, Chair Stum. Today, Transit Advisory members, we have a request for special services for extension of services that we'll be asking the board to review and consider. As on the screen, the request is from Winslow Indian Healthcare Center. They wish to participate in our van pool program. The reason that this is coming as a request for extension of services is because this is outside of Mountain Line's boundaries and outside of Coconino County, who pays for the van pool program. So the current van pool program dictates that van pools must either begin or end inside of Coconino County, and Coconino County there then pays the local match for the operation of that service through our contract with Enterprise, and Mountain Line through our federal programs provides subsidy for operation of that service. Winslow Indian Healthcare Center is applying to participate for 3 vans in which they would provide that $400 a month. They would receive the $400 monthly subsidy, which is available through our grant program, and Winslow would pay that local match instead of Coconino County. Within our service request, we have requirements as we consider these. So Estella did put together responses to these minimum requirements. The direct request of services are to be paid by the requesting agency. Winslow Indian Healthcare Center has agreed to pay that local match. Indirect cost of services are to be paid by the requesting agency. We are actually not proposing to put any indirect cost towards this. They're negligible. And so we do not believe it's necessary to further distribute our indirect cost into this program. And therefore we are recommending that we would not request payment for indirect cost. Service request is consistent with our mission, vision, and guiding principles. Obviously, we'll have to update this to say core values. And so we believe that this request is in line with those mission, vision, and our new core values. Mountain Line can continue to meet all existing commitments to Mountain Line member agencies as per our current strategic work plan. And we do not have any concerns that adding these 3 vans on our existing contract would prevent us from continuing to provide for our existing commitments. Other things to consider is, does the requesting agency have long-term funding? They're committed, Winslow Indian Healthcare Center is committed to 1 year and then reevaluate each year. And honestly, that's how most of the van pool programs work. It's not like a fixed route or a paratransit. It is a turnkey program. So we don't have any concerns in that regard. It would not be disruptive to our original program. And then, are there indirect benefits to Mountain Line member agencies? We'll just say that the board continues to ask us to view how do we make sure there's connectivity with the outlying areas, both within the county and outside of the county. So a van pool program in Navajo County has been a topic that comes up on a regular basis, and approval of this could be the first step to really creating that collaborative and connected service. So with that, we will be asking the board for their approval to meet the request of Winslow Indian Healthcare Center to provide 3 van pools under our van pool turnkey contract with Enterprise. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Heather. That was a great presentation, because I think you answered any of the questions that were popping into my head. Any comments or questions for Heather? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. And pitch hitting for Estella is Josh on grant status report.
Thank you, Chair. I just now remember that I was doing this, so we'll see how it goes. I am not Estella, but I will do my best to walk through this grant status report that she's put together. Some background information. Since Mountain Line's formation 18 years ago, we've received over $150 million in grant funding. Obviously, some of our largest projects are currently in the works, and costs escalate over the years. So those funds we have, of those funds we've been awarded, about 80% are currently spent. Some of the remaining 20% is budgeted for future years or the current year, depending on what it's for. All of these, as Michelle alluded to earlier, all of these funding awards are successful only because we're able to leverage our local transit tax dollars that we're very grateful that have been approved periodically through the years. And this contributes to the robust system that we have today. So next slide. So in fiscal 2023, we were awarded close to $30 million from a variety of federal transit administration funding programs, as seen in this chart. Those marked ADOT are administered by the state, but they said in the last report that the state of Arizona does not contribute funds directly to transit. They just pass the revenue for the programs, which they're required to do by the federal government. Next slide is a short listing of some of the grant programs available to us. Formula funds are resources available based on things like census data, other information like land, area, ridership, vehicle, variety of factors that are all used nationwide to determine, to decide the allocation of resources that Congress has budgeted. These funds are not competitive to apply for, and if we apply for them, we receive what we're allocated. They can, in some cases, be flexible for use for either operating or capital needs. Discretionary funds require competitive grant applications and decided based on whatever criteria are looking to support at that time. These grants are typically offered at a 8% federal funding, 20% local funding split. Occasionally 90-10, but less frequently so. Mountain Line has historically been very successful at obtaining competitive grants because a key requirement is having the local funding match available for the award. So we said a few times before, the city of Flagstaff has a dedicated transit tax that we're able to draw from for that local match. So that's useful to bring those extra federal dollars into the community. Next slide. Our currently open grants with FTA being used for a variety of things. Design and construction of the Downtown Connection Center is the largest of them. That's $30 or so million. Design and construction of pedestrian bicycle improvements. That's actually an award to us. The city of Flagstaff is the primary beneficiary of those funds for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure around the area. We have a variety of technology upgrades, design and construction of the CDL course at NAU, which is somewhat nearing completion. The electric charging equipment that's necessary for the no emission buses that we're purchasing. I think there'll be more build out of that over time. So more grants will have to be applied for that over time. And then design and construction of a new maintenance facility at our Caspar headquarters. We just recently were awarded these funds. So now we can sort of begin that project in earnest. Next slide is Arizona Department of Transportation grants. These are nationwide programs that are administered by the state of Arizona Department of Transportation for the purpose of operating transportation services for seniors. And then 5311 is rural public transit, which is we qualify for with our rural city that we have. Next slide, please. The open grants that we have for 5310 and 5311 are mobility management. So that's just planning services for our programs, operations of our paratransit and taxi programs. The taxi program augments paratransit program and offsets the cost a little bit. And we have a website accessibility audit and implementation to help shore up our website so it's accessible to all and people can get information when it's needed. That's provided by 5310, I believe. And then the Mountain Line Van Pool program to the more far-flung reaches of the county is paid for with the 5311 program. And hopefully that is all under this. Yes.
Thank you,
Heather,
Josh.
feel free to throw in anything if she'd like, but that's what I have.
Any questions? Okay, thanks, Josh.
Sure.
Next item is the maintenance facility design kickoff. Anne.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the TAC, Ann Dunno, Capital Development Manager. I am providing a brief update on our maintenance facility project update. Not seeking any direction from the board. Excuse me, the board may provide direction, but there's no recommendation. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background to this project. In 2022, Mountain Line completed our Caspar headquarters master plan, in which the goal was to maximize bus storage and maintenance here at the Caspar facility. Out of that plan, there were two phases identified based on really the priorities of the needs of Mountain Line, which was the maintenance facility is our highest and most immediate need for improvements here at the site. And out of that, we identified some key goals. Mainly, this facility, the current maintenance facility is very undersized, doesn't hold our 60-foot buses. It's really one of our older warehouses. It's a pretty old, well-used facility, and it doesn't support our current existing fleet, and of course, wouldn't support future fleet expansions. So the new facility would provide that capacity. It also would greatly improve the working conditions of our fleet staff, our mechanics, to be more modern, better lighting, space, better fit with the workflow and the equipment they use. It would also help us address the needs for the new EV buses. Electric vehicle buses have the big batteries, so it would have capacity to handle and working through with that equipment. Also, this facility would be designed to be flexible for our future potential to have other fuel technologies. Right now, our zero emissions plan is directing us to transition to electric, which we are in the process of doing, but technologies are changing fast. There could be other alternatives in the future. So we want to really do our best future proofing on this building. Next slide, please. So going back to the master plan, it's called Concept A because during that plan we had alternatives, and the alternative that was selected was Concept A, which identified the phasing you're seeing on this map Phase 1 is existing shop 0. That's where the future maintenance facility will be constructed. And then phase 2 is our existing admin building. That would be a future bus storage. Next slide, please. So a little bit diving into the concept for the maintenance. Phase 1 is essentially 3 levels. Phase 1, level 1 is the 6-bay facility where we demolish the existing shop 0 adjacent to the admin building. Next slide, please. This kind of a secondary level would be a mezzanine where there would be equipment, generators, opportunity for kind of really the HVAC system mainly. Next slide, please. And then level 3 is essentially a rooftop parking with a ramp access. Next slide, please. And a little bit of a cross section like a Lego. You can see the side, the light blue, that's the maintenance phase 1 that the current project is really only building level 1 and level 2, the maintenance phase and the mezzanine. It's going to design it to be able to accommodate the future rooftop parking. As you see with phase 2, when we eventually build the bus storage, those would all tie together and we would have, one kind of rooftop parking and solar ideally up top. Next slide, please. A little bit more about the background on this project, which will show up in the next slide with more of our project delivery and schedule. Part of this project is we need to do an update to our conditional use permit, CUP, with the city. So with that, we are anticipating doing what's called a lot modification. With this blue line, you see Mountain Line owns these 3 parcels. I believe everyone on this committee is aware. The green parcel is what we call our Linda Vista, our vacant land parcel. There's a little trapezoid in that southeast corner of that green parcel under the blue line that we want to modify that existing parcel line and then bring that little section into, essentially combine it with the purple parcel and make that, that will help our CUP approval process. And work with the city on that and do a rezoning so it would be highway commercial. Next slide, please. So in terms of project delivery, what we're doing right now is, we have a design and construction phase. Our design phase will complete final design of the maintenance facility, as I said, to accommodate that rooftop parking and solar for that future construction. It would also need to do preliminary design of the bus storage because in order to, make everything fit and then really ideally get our full CUP updated, we would need to know what we're doing in phase 2 to make sure it's all going to work together. And then as part of that as well, we need to do this lot modification rezoning portion of that Linda Vista parcel. And then with construction, essentially we're just demoing that shop and reconfiguring some parking and then constructing the facility. Next slide, please. And a little bit on schedule on how we're going about. We've got HDR under initiation for under current contracts. So they're now starting to work. We had a brief kickoff the other week. We're going into programming and concept. Eventually what this will do is we'll have a concept that'll go into our CMAR procurement that we anticipate releasing this fall. Once we get that CMAR, that contractor on board, they can help us really dive into the schematic and all these various phases you see, schematic design, and then eventually construction documents. And then we have our city approvals, our authority having jurisdiction approvals. And so we will be going through obviously the concept site plan and then CUP process. Really next spring is showing up on the schedule. And we wouldn't probably start construction until maybe late 2024 if we can get some components pulled out for some early construction items, but probably not. It could be early 2025, and then this doesn't show the completion, but it's probably going to be early 2026 by the time we're done with construction. Next slide. And then going back to that funding piece that's been mentioned before, we do have 2 grants, a design and a construction grant, and you can definitely see the value here that's been reiterated around that federal, what the federal dollars bring, and then the local match. So essentially, this whole project is local dollars is, you know, is under $5 million, which is, you know, you look at that big picture, and it really does kind of demonstrate how valuable the grant process is, and how much that means to our community to be able to bring these facilities online with those federal grants. And I believe that's my last slide. If there are any comments or questions, I welcome any questions.
Thanks, Anne. The one piece of advice I will give you, that since I have inherited parking garages, is to think about your snow, because I can tell you the top deck of Knowles last year was closed for months. And so either have a method to remove snow, pile snow, or prevent it from getting on the top. If I ever have to build another garage, we've got to find a way. I mean, the wind, like I said, it has a significant impact. And granted, it's a portion of the year, but it's a pretty big impact if people have nowhere else to park. There are comments or questions for Anne?
Yes, this is Carol again.
Go ahead, Carol.
Aaron, that was exactly what I was thinking about as well. And to make sure there's a place to push the snow if you're going to remove it off the top deck there. I had related to the staff report. There were just two things I wanted to suggest. One was on page 18, where it says stewardship of resources. I think that should have the word goal in front of it so that it's consistent with the format. And on page 19, the conditional use permit omitted the AL, just small thing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Carol. Any other comments or questions for Anne? Okay, hearing none. Summary of current events, Heather.
Sure, real quick on Anne's item, I don't know if you all noticed, but that $16 million value that she showed in federal funds ties back to Estella's report, $16 million in fiscal year 2023. And I appreciate that Busy pointed out to remind you all that that was a recent grant award announcement that is allowing that project that we discussed last spring to move forward. So appreciate Anne bringing that update today, but wanted to tie together those grant pieces. So briefly, I do have a couple of current events to share with you. Of course, as you read your packets, if you have questions on the other progress reports, please let us know. So there were a number of items in the current events, and I'm just going to touch on a few. Wanted to provide a correction. You'll see a couple lined out items on this slide that is a direct quote from your current events report, and wanted to update you that actually out of the 11 that we hired, we've actually hired 12 now, not 11. We did lose 2 of those during the training process. We're hoping that both of them will come back around into future classes, but that's as it stands now. 4 trainees are slated to test next week, with 1 person left in our training program. And HR and our operations team and training team are working on getting new applicants scheduled to start as soon as possible. So we are at 48 full-time operators, 5 part-time staff. And in order to operate full service with no overtime for any staff members, we need 53 full-time operators. So you can see we're still floating at 5 short in our full-time pool, and we're very grateful for our part-timers, which are really key to meeting the service that we have right now. And we continue to see above average absenteeism that has started happening again in the last couple of weeks, as I think we all know cooler temperatures will bring illness to all of our households. In early August, Mountain Line was contacted about an event at the Grand Canyon. Don't know if you heard about that little event that happened up at the Grand Canyon. We were asked to assist with providing transportation, and I want to express gratitude to Rafi and Aaron at Northern Arizona University, as well as Mike at the Flagstaff Unified School District. Mountain Line didn't have the vehicles needed to commit to that service, and so we partnered with both of those groups to put together a fleet that could provide the service. Ultimately, the request was withdrawn because they were able to get coach services to that But Mountain Line did take 2 vehicles up to that event to provide ADA service if it was needed, because the over-the-road coaches did not have ADA accessibility. So a few pictures from that event, our staff that drove those vehicles up there, and 2 of our board members that were at that event. It was quite an honor to be there that day and celebrate that event. Our staff, this is Cody Weaver in the image. For those of you that have not seen Cody, Cody was at the job fair at Northern Arizona University along with Sheldon Yazzie and some other staff. We didn't receive any applications out of that event, but we still believe it is a good idea for us to be present and talk about our jobs and our opportunities. And we're slated to attend another one later this month. So we're very excited about that. We will also be participating in one at CCC in the coming weeks. A couple of quick travel reports were noted, so I'll just call attention. Busy and Estella attended the APTA Sustainability and Operations Planning and Scheduling Conference. That's the longest conference title I've ever seen. They both came back with some great information on how we can incorporate lessons learned from our peers and new tools into our processes. So excited about that. Josh Stone and I attended the CTAA Small Urban Network, and so that's part of the Community Transportation Association of America. It is a set-aside group that is all agencies like Flagstaff, small agencies. The great time to collaborate. Some of the conversations included operator and passenger safety, standardizing bus builds to address build timelines as well as growing cost. And then we had some legislative updates on funding opportunities that are coming. I also attended the SWATA, or Southwestern Transit Association Summer University Training. It is not a conference about universities, which often is confusing. It's a university in that we were all there for educational opportunities. We did take 2 of our mechanic team members, Andrew Everett and Greg Lyons, to this event, and they participated in a 2-day electric vehicle symposium. So they got to talk to the actual builders of these electric buses. They were there with other mechanic team members. It was a great networking event for them. I don't have a slide on the next one, but I want to make sure I call attention to the city of Flagstaff has confirmed that the 2023 tax revenues were roughly $900,000 higher than budgeted. Those funds sit in a dedicated transit fund at the city of Flagstaff until we need them for future transit needs, but that is a good story to recognize. Big milestone at the Downtown Connection Center. The photo on the left, if you look way at the far left corner, you'll see a white building and a white car. We have now delivered a building for our drivers. So our drivers have been using a van and a picnic table for break activities and porta potties. They were very nice porta potties, but they were still porta potties. So we're very excited to bring this Downtown Connection Center, which offers them a break room with a refrigerator. They haven't had a refrigerator or running water in 3 months. So excited to bring this here. And Dave Doss, our operations manager, created a celebration. He brought food down, hung streamers and balloons and banners, and it was great to celebrate with our drivers that event. Before I show the next slide, I want to note that there were recognized additional 8 team members that received the 100 Club recognition. Busy talked a little bit about that in our KPIs. So this is that continuing effort to every month recognize people with those unobserved behind the wheel evaluations that we are doing. I will note Chris Haviland is on this list. He is someone we just celebrated his first anniversary with him. Juan Morales is also a fairly new employee. We either just celebrated his first year or it's coming in the coming months. The rest of the staff have been with Mountain Line for several years, but we're always happy to take this opportunity to celebrate with them. As part of our recruitment program, we really evaluated in July. I became aware that we continue to have some staffing struggles. Wanted to be able to go back to full service in August with the return of Northern Arizona University students and CCC to their class schedules. Really became hyper-focused on our training program, and we identified a way to move people through the training program faster by introducing what we are calling a mentorship program. So we are introducing new employees to our bus specific duties through mentorship. So instead of our trainers spending their time on things like route training, fare box training, customer service, We're actually using some of our superstar or stellar employees to provide that through a mentorship program. It allows our trainers to focus on the real behind the wheel technical things needed for the commercial driver's license. This really has been allowing us to do 2 and 3 training groups at the same time. So we're moving people through that training program faster. In this picture is Blaine on the left and Stephen on the right. Stephen is one of our September anniversaries, and Stephen is Blaine's mentor. And so both were very excited to go out, and we'll have more news on the progress of that program in the coming months. Some other anniversaries, we have 6 anniversaries within our operations department that are not milestone anniversaries, also, although some of them are quite significant. Peter Farnes is one of our part-time operators. He's celebrating 4 years. Joseph Tyree is an operations supervisor providing support to our drivers in the field, celebrating 6 years. Stephen Olvera is celebrating 6 years as a transit operator. He has also been an operations supervisor and can step into that role on an as-needed basis. Rich Felipe is celebrating 18 years with Mountain Line. So he's been here a very long time, as has Carlos Lorenzo, who currently is serving as an operations supervisor, also with 18 years. And then Dave Janway is a transit operator celebrating 11 years. Some of these staff are participating in the mentorship program, and we're very grateful for their ongoing commitment and dedication. A couple other staff not in our operations division celebrating anniversaries. Estella Hollander, who is out celebrating her wedding, is celebrating 6 years this month. Juan Diego serves in our IT department, and he is celebrating 2 years with Mountain Line. And Sam Short, who's taking a much deserved vacation, is celebrating 13 years. And I did note at the beginning of the meeting, this is actually his anniversary. So I disturbed him on his vacation to tell him happy anniversary. A couple things not on the report. We took delivery of our 2nd electric bus. Although the images here celebrate Kristen Cinema's visit to our building in early August, that is the new electric bus behind us. It was being wrapped while she was here during that event. That bus will go out in service next week. So you'll start seeing 2 electric buses moving around our community. They are 2 manufacturers, but look relatively the same. And then the last one is we did provide free service to Coconino County Fair over the Labor Day weekend with great results. I don't have the actual numbers to share with you, but from what I've heard, the bus was regularly full of people. One of the things we did this year is we offered free transit service across the community, trying to encourage people to leave their cars at home, take any route to the Downtown Connection Center and jump on that county fair bus. So I look forward to sharing some ridership data report with you in a future month. And Chair Stom, with that, I am done with my current event report.
Thank you, Heather. That's all great information. So just a reminder for folks, in October, we do not have our regular TAC meeting. Instead, it is our joint meeting, and we will be over at Route 66 over at Kachina Square. And then our next TAC meeting will be in November. With that, if there are no other comments or questions, meeting adjourned. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.